You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey there, Days of Our Lives fans. It is Belinda from Soap Dirt. Here's my big question for today. Who ruins Gwen Rizczech's wedding day? Right now, Gwen is floating on cloud nine. She's excited about marrying Prince Charming, but the prince has been playing hide the family jewels with her best friend Leo Stark as of this week. And if that wasn't bad enough, there are these other forces kind of conspiring to ruin Gwen's happy wedding day. Is this going to be another crash and burn at the altar like the last time she tried to get married? Remember how badly it went the day she had a double wedding, and it was her marrying Xander and Leo marrying Craig Wesley, which is kind of funny because his daughter is Chloe, who's now with Xander. So talk about a weird kind of outcome to wedding guest for that day. All right, let's take a look at who might really screw up Gwen's wedding day and ruin her happily ever after. We've got 5 candidates that we think might rip this wedding apart. We're going to dig in, but if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our day's spoilers, news, promos, and more. All right, the first candidate for wedding day ruination, obviously, is Xander Cook. He is not happy to see Gwen engaged to Dimitri von Leuschner. Her hairy, scary ex is not happy. He wasn't happy anyway, but then after he overheard him on the phone, he overheard Dimitri saying sketchy things on the phone, and so he knows the guy is up to no good. The problem is, realistically, Xander doesn't know it, but he does not have any energy to devote to his co-business partner Gwen's engagement because he's dating Chloe Lane. He's falling for her. He doesn't have any idea that Sarah Horton is pregnant with his child. Nonetheless, he's still taking this time to worry about Gwen, to try and warn Dimitri away from her, trying to threaten him, and also just trying to give Gwen kind of a wake-up call about this dude that she's taken up with, almost in like a revenge/rebound romance. So there's this chance that Xander could show up at her wedding and try to convince her to walk away, even if he's not asking her to walk away and get back with him, because he's very smitten with Chloe and then Sarah's pregnant. So I don't see room for Gwen romantically in Xander's life, but I do know he cares about her and doesn't want to see her hurt, and he may try a last-ditch effort. The next person that I think might ruin Gwen's wedding day could do it on a malicious basis, and that is Chad DiMera, her brother-in-law. Do you stay the brother-in-law if the person you're related to dies? I guess so. So even though Abigail's dead, she would still call Chad her brother-in-law. And Chad's not keen on seeing Gwen get her happily ever after. If you don't remember, I'm just going to remind you, but hopefully you do. When Gwen first came to town, she had targeted Abigail Devereaux because Abby grew up with their dad, Jack Devereaux, and Gwen grew up fatherless and poor, and she tried to target her. Part of her plan was to make Abby think she was crazy again, seduce Chad. Gwen did that and got pregnant with his child. Then she lost the baby and tried to blame that on Abigail, and then she was even one of the suspects when Abigail was slain. Now, while Gwen didn't do that crime, she's done plenty of other ones and did a lot of harm to Abigail, who Chad has now lost because awful Clyde Weston murdered her. So Chad might throw a fit, especially if Gwen and Dimitri are getting married in the family mansion, and he might just show up out of spite to try and mess up her wedding day, because if Abigail's dead, he doesn't think that Gwen should be happy, probably. The third person on the list that could blow up her wedding, again, is someone who cares about her and wouldn't do it maliciously, and that is Kristen DiMera. She wouldn't try to hurt Gwen or cheat her of her happy ending, but no doubt Kristen is worried about Gwen because she knows for certain exactly how Dimitri is using her to get his hands on this hefty inheritance on Days of Our Lives. But Dimitri is a master manipulator. He is definitely Megan's son. He leveraged Kristen to keep his dirty secret by promising to help her with her custody case. And, she is so desperate to get to spend time with Rachel Black, and Dimitri is holding that over her head. But by the time Dimitri and Gwen's wedding day rolls around at the end of July, maybe Kristen will have second thoughts, or maybe she's worked it out some other way with Brady, although that looks, like it's not going to be true. Plus, little Rachel overheard Dimitri and Leo. So the big question is whether Rachel tells Kristen about it, or, I'm assuming that Rachel might even know Gwen from just spending time around Salem or spending time with her mom and maybe met her. But it could be adorable little Rachel Black that ruins that wedding, especially if she's like a flower girl or something because she's a DiMera. Wouldn't that be fun if it came from Kristen or her daughter? And if Kristen did it, it would be to warn Gwen so she can walk away before she is crushed. If Rachel does it, she might just do it to try and protect Gwen. She may even be calling her Auntie Gwen, or just, to be an attention-seeking little monster, because that's kind of how Rachel is sometimes. The fourth person that might blow up Gwen's wedding is Leo Stark. Right now, little Leo seems like the worst best friend that a British girl can have. I mean, it's one thing to accuse her fiancé Dimitri of lying to her. It's another to confirm that Dimitri is lying to her and then hop on the guy for a sexy ride in his king-size bed at the DiMera mansion. And then, just as Dimitri has gotten Kristen to keep his dirty secret, he convinced Leo to do the same. And Leo is so thrilled over the ride he got on the D train that he has now agreed to betray his best friend in the world and not warn her that she's a pawn in Dimitri von Leuschner's scheme. And Dimitri made it very clear to Leo, I'm not bi, I'm gay. And he did promise that he would make Gwen happy in his own way, which sounds really sketchy. Is he going to get married and then say, oh, we can just have an open marriage? But the bottom line is Leo knows that Gwen's fallen for him hook, line, and sinker and loves him and thinks that Dimitri loves her. So I do think that Lady Whistleblower is going to keep spending quality time in Dimitri's bed for a while, but maybe Leo will have a crisis of conscience and blab the truth. I do expect that Leo is probably going to be her maid of honor, her Lady Whistleblower of honor at her wedding, and maybe Leo will do the right thing at the altar and say, look, Gwenny, I can't let you do this. But if he did come clean with that, it would probably also be the end of their friendship. All right, before we reveal the fifth and final person that we think is very likely to ruin Gwen Rizczech's wedding day, if you haven't, please reach down, click subscribe so you don't miss any of our Days of Our Lives spoilers, news, and more. All right, the number 5 person that we have down that could ruin Gwen's wedding is Gwen herself. There is a way for this to happen where it could be Gwen herself. As a matter of fact, if it worked out this way, I think it would be extremely soapy and a power move to take back her agency because she is being lied to by a man who's using her to get a hand on her fortune, is bribing her friends and banging one of them. So, there are a bunch of red flags flying around her hunky foreign fiance, but Gwen is just ignoring all of them. I mean, but he's not Prince Charming. He's Eurotrash DiMera spawn with an agenda that's about money. He even basically sold his body to Leo to buy his silence. But we've got a few weeks left in July for this wedding, and maybe Gwen starts to do the math. Maybe she realizes something is off because of the pressure he's putting on her to get married by his birthday. And remember, Leo found those papers really quickly in Dimitri's room. If he does not wise up and move them to a safe, if Gwen comes over there and pokes around his room because she's got just a feeling that something is hinky, she could easily find them. And then she would have all the information that Leo has, maybe minus the information about him sleeping with Leo. But what would be kind of a power move, I think, is if she gets a hold of these papers, or like if Kristen tells her, then they're going to get married, I think, like just a day or so, the day before, the day of, right as Dimitri is turning 40. And he told Leo that the codicil said he had to marry a woman. So he doesn't even have a backup plan of being able to marry his adorable little bed buddy, Leo. So if Gwen finds this out and just plays along and walks down the aisle and gets all the way to I do and then says, I don't, then she could screw him out of all that money because he wouldn't have time to find somebody else to marry him, right? Unless he talks, I don't know, somebody gullible like Talia into it. Let's face it, Gwen could flip the script on him and make sure he doesn't get a nickel of that money if she dumps him at the last second and it's too late for him to find an alternate bride. I personally would like to see that. I think it would be a super soapy way for this storyline to wrap up, because then Gwen would be the one in charge of her destiny. However, I think it's probably going to go a different way, but I still got my fingers crossed for my vision. Let us know what you think in the comments.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.